Okay, welcome back to another Godot session. In this session I would like to implement a simple enemy and change up the backgrounds a little and show off music and sound effects. I think I've shown some sound effects but not music. Oh yeah, music I showed last time that you have to create a script to loop it for some reason. I've changed the styling of this. Hopefully this will be a bit more colorful because the colors are a little bit washed up. I also look ridiculous since my microphone broke last time. But I really wanted to cover why I'm not using inheritance like at all, unless I have to. Like, this is something I have to do in order to attach a script to a node. So I do this, right? I have to do this. But maybe I'll even, I think I will draw a small chart for you folks and explain exactly why I'm not using inheritance. And this is supposed to be the main character. Just a concept. So I can kind of draw, this is slanted. But here I really want to just explain why I'm so against object-oriented programming. A5, hang on, let's do this. So I'm gonna draw this. So suppose you have your object hierarchy, like this is your object. This is the main object in Godot, and then you have node. Okay, this is node, and here you have one of them is ref counted, one of them is a different kind of node. So this is a character body 2D. This is a static body 2D, and this is, I don't know, rigid body, right? And in order for you to be able to use OOP efficiently in Godot, you need to be able to insert your objects higher on the hierarchy, and you cannot do this. Suppose now that I am attaching a script to a character body, right? My script. This is how Godot works. This is how Godot works, right? This is your script. And when you begin inheriting stuff from this, then this is inherited 1, inherited 2, inherited 3. So suppose you made a script and now you want to extend it. So this happens if you have variations, but usually what you want is this. You want to take this, your stuff, and inject it all the way here. And Godot doesn't allow this. Suppose you add a save data function, right? This is your function, and load data. This is your load data function, and you would like every node to have this. Suppose you also create some variables like HP and speed, etc. right? You make your variables and all this. And if this was here, then these variables would transfer here as well, right? All of this would go here. And that would be nice. That would be extending your library and your toolset. But instead, we cannot do this. We cannot do this. We only get this. You get your script and whatever it inherits. Right? It inherits from a character body. So suppose you want to attach this here. Well, you can't because multiple inheritance isn't allowed, and there is no module system or roles system or component system, so you cannot create a script. And even if it has stuff like just like speed, right? It has a variable speed and then that's it, right? And you cannot do this because it inherits from this. So this is how Godot works. And you cannot do this, you cannot do this, you cannot do anything with this, right? It can only extend a character body, and everything here has to be a character body. So, and this is why I'm not using inheritance, because everything my script does has to eventually be a character body 2D. And sometimes I want static bodies, I probably never want rigid bodies, but I will want like Node 2D, just like Node 2D, right? It's probably higher up here, oops. I'll just call this Node 2D, and this is going to be some other node. Node goes actually here, this is Node. So this is kind of a mess, right? You cannot extend your stuff meaningfully. Another thing, now that we have drawn this, and this is the structure. So if you open Godot documentation, you can see that Godot has an extremely bloated object class. Look, everything inherits from object, everything. And it has all these functions, everything that's relevant to every object, right? So what's the problem here? Well, the problem here is that the object here, some people call this the God object because it does everything. This object is equivalent to a library. I don't know. Sorry, not English native. So this object is equivalent to a standard library with functions in them. So you have, for example, object underscore init, and now you have a pointer to an object. Why did I choose such a thick thing? Right, you have an object, pointer, and other functions, and in this function you take the object and you like assign speed variables to it, whatever, right? And you have another function, object underscore delete or destroy, etc. So however, in Godot we cannot access this structure. All of this is unmodifiable by us. All of this is not modifiable. We cannot use this in any way. But what we can do is create a library through a singleton that will function like this. Also, the advantage of this approach is that it's not dependent on the type, even though you can make it depend on the type. Delete, right? And because you can make a library that's more like a C library, then you can call, suppose we have a script. This is my script. This is my script, and now my script can be applied, or well, it cannot be applied to two of these, but my script can use this function, and my other script can also use this function. So I can have something like object inheritance without the complexity of the inheritance hierarchy. I can call any function as long as I make sure that these objects are compatible, which they usually are, which you can in Godot do by writing something like if object dot has method, and you check for the method you want, and then you can write your code here, which depends on whether an object has, like as I explained, the function activate, right? So if it has the activate function, we can treat every object as an interactable or an activatable. So all object act. Oh, I'm going to show a perfect example of this when I'm going to be making a enemy class, enemy object. Pretend this is act, because I can type properly with this. So, and yeah, and you can just do, if you can check here, right? So that objects that don't have the method don't crash. So you can actually do this. This is like the makeshift ugly version of roles and modules in Ruby. So I'm going to show what I mean by roles so that you have a better understanding of what I'm trying to explain here. So I've explained why using object hierarchies is pointless these days. This applies to Godot programming as well. It's always better to have a library because it's more versatile, it's more practical to do. So what did I want to do? What did I say? Roles. Okay. So suppose you have an object, any object, this is anything, and then you have a role or component, or I think it's called component these days. And this role has a few functions. Function 1, function 2, let's call them F1, F2, and then you have another object, and they both can integrate the functions into their own functions, right? And this, for example, if this function was called activate or interact, right, then both of these objects could be called, and the roles usually have an able suffix, right? Activatable, interactable, right? So both of these now have activate functions and interact functions. So both of them can fulfill the role of an activatable or interactable object without any complexities up here in terms of object hierarchies. You can have another role called savable that has save and load functions, and now these can integrate them as well. So the role makes sure that this happens smoothly. So these functions can check for various parameters. Usually these roles can also inherit from each other. So if this role also if a savable role fulfills the role of an activatable and interactable, you get something that's also having functions f1, f2, activatable and interactable, right? And now you don't need to inherit from this role at all. All you need is this role, savable, which will have these functions. All of these functions will be there. And both of these objects are now savable, loadable, interactable, and activatable. And there's no hierarchy here. And these things can be somewhat emulated, or basically it fulfills the role of a library again, but in a more useful way. We don't have any complexities here, like what's object, what inherits from what, and what can be what, right? So that's why I like roles. The problem here is that in Godot we don't have any of this. So instead what we have to do is make a library. So in Godot we make an autoload, which is a singleton, but it can be also a bunch of static libraries. I figured how those work. So we have two objects that are relatively different. Let's just put a square here and a triangle here to make sure that these are different things. They have their own code, right? They both act differently, but we want to share some functionality between them. So what we do is create a library. This is prefixed by lib or global or whatever you want to call it, and we do the same thing as if we're doing the role, but we will name our functions intelligently. So for example, if I want to act on every object, I will call my function object init, for example, initialization. Object init. If I want to act or if I want to make the functions act on enemies, I will do enemy. Attack or init, doesn't matter, right? Examples. So I'll be doing this or something like this. So now what this means is the name of the function suggests to me its usage. So an object means that anything can get at the object, but only enemies should be using enemy attack. But that's not a hard requirement, except it makes no sense for a player to call this function, right? But only enemies should be calling this function in their readies or process, right? And now these functions will propagate. Here we'll write them manually, right? We want in process, if there's a condition, then we want to call lib enemy attack. something gets fulfilled, some condition, they see the player and they attack. Obviously you won't be calling this function in this object, which can, for example, be a player. And this is an enemy. So for this object, we'll smartly name our function player underscore and whatever we want the method to be called, or whatever, right? Init, for example. That's an easy one. So now our player can be a character body, a static body, a rigid body, etc. It can be any of these, and the same goes for this. And we never have to check or worry about stuff like inheritance. That never comes up. We know that every object should be able to call our function object init, but we also know that only player objects or playable objects should be calling player init. This means that you can have both a character body and a static body player with a different behavior. Also rigid can be different behavior depending on what kind of object this is trying to be compatible with. So suppose you want different initialization based on these things. So you can add stuff in the player init that checks for if self is, right, that's a comparison, if self is something, right? If it's this class, do this. If it's that class, do that. If it's this, do this. Right? If it's, we can customize the initialization based on logic in one function. We can also add different functions like player. We can name this like rigid body, rigid init, and in this function we can simply write player init and do other specific stuff for this rigid body, right? And we can put that, so this function takes the function from here and it just does the initialization for every possible player object. So something like this could initialize speed for every object HP, because that's object agnostic. It doesn't matter if it's a rigid body, you can add that to everything. And you can make a bunch of functions that check if you really need to check if it's a static or rigid, then you can just check and the function can behave differently. Or you can make a different function and call that function from the other function. You can basically mix and match this however you want. It's very flexible, it's very practical, and you're going to end up with one, or if maybe you want to specialize them. For example, you can make an object singleton with its own functions if you want to separate them into individuals, player, whatever, right? I put them in one lib because it doesn't matter that much. But yeah, you can create your own libraries and those can call whatever is necessary. Here in the ready you can call object init and nothing will happen because object init sets, for example, speed and HP, which every object probably should have anyway, so whatever, right? But that's just an example. I'm not going to use actually init functions because you can set that in the ready, right, for anything. But this prevents this horrible hierarchy that we have with Godot, where we have like node 2D, everything inherits from node 2D, and we don't get functions from character bodies, we don't get functions from other bodies. We can't call them, we cannot extend meaningfully the functionality of every object, like adding a save functionality, because that requires us to insert our object somewhere here so that it propagates down to every object. But this area is not accessible to us or changeable. We can only influence the lower parts of the specific classes. And this is why, in general, object inheritance is not good. It's just not good, because here you can change anything, and here you can only break everything. If you add some functionality here that's not compatible with this object, because I don't know, something changed, then this whole chain kind of breaks, and everything downwards also breaks and doesn't work. So instead of propagating errors like this, we'll introduce different kinds of bugs, but still. Okay, this explanation was longer than I wanted, but how much time did I waste? Okay, it was 26 minutes. But that's basically the entire reason I'm not using inheritance. Godot still uses inheritance, but yeah. So I'm probably going to insert a cut here and start a new recording. Okay, whatever. Let me check. Okay, seems like it's in one recording. So I'm gonna continue. I would like to keep this like max 1 hour, because it's long anyway. Oops. So, and this is what I did here. So I have lib. These are some utility functions, and this is the actual functions that I use. See, this is the first application: game save, game load, instead of save game, save load, save game, load game. I prefix the stuff I'm doing with. I prefix the main point of the function. Game hard reset. Object has properties, object has methods, right? It's just iterators. Object load, and this is the function that basically enables me to save and load data by combining one dictionary. So this is the NPC, which has an activate function, which is I've explained this already, but I'll point it out again, that here I check if an object has the activate method. If it does, call it. I've covered this for different reasons. Right, so we'll start by closing some of these because I have way too many open. Part gate, we don't need this, we don't need the pressure switch. Oh, the pressure switch still needs a sound, I guess. Okay, I've added some sounds, so what happened here? Okay, what happened here? It's here. Did I like... I must have... Yeah. Goofed up, I somehow pasted that there. So I added steps, varied them by pitch, and I added some other sound effects too. The game is supposed to be in a futuristic setting, but so far my art doesn't really reflect that. Added some neat sounding text. And music. Well, music background. Also experimenting with prefabs. Well, they're in a different resolution from the character, so it looks terrible. But yeah, atmosphere. So I'm going to start a new scene. Make this an enemy. Save it here. Let's see. Character body. We set this to floating because that's top down. Animated sprite. Collision. What am I doing? Oh. New sprite frames, and here we load an atlas. So these red ones I've made as enemy sprites. This is down. Down 1, 2, 3, 4. 12 frames per second. New animation up. And just do this again. All of them need to be set to 12, by the way. I haven't done that, so I have extra frames if I wanted to do something extra that I don't have a name for yet. So this is supposed to be walking down, side up, down, up, etc. Okay. And now we attach a script called enemygd, that's fine. Okay. And here what do we want the enemy to do? I guess we'll have functions for wandering and functions for chasing player. I'm putting this here yet, not into the library, because even though the wander can be for NPCs as well, in any case, until I'm sure I want to put this stuff into a library, this just stays the way it is now. For example, I'm going to be using this function a lot. I'm going to show why. So first we spawn the enemy with a new timer. And we're going to trigger it every half a second, I guess. And wander. We set this timer to be an action timer. And then we start it. Here we will check for a action. So I'll do this like the old-fashioned way. Or you know what, we can use this. We now have this construct. Attack and wander and chase player. I should probably create various timers for this. Yeah, otherwise I'm just gonna end up creating a bunch of timers. So maybe we can change the timeout function. If the signal is already connected, this method returns invalid parameter and pushes an error message. Unless the signal is connected with connect reference count. To prevent this, use is connected first to check if it is in connection. If a callable object is freed, the connection will be lost. Oh. Do we have some? Oh, we have disconnect. Okay. So we create an action timer. When we start it, first we connect it here. This does not seem like a good idea. Okay. We'll do something else. We'll make a simple state machine here. This means like the default, do nothing. Just insert debug stuff. Okay. So we connect a new timer, start it, perform the default action, which is wander. We could also add idle, which would mean it does nothing. We'll wander so that it does these things. I'm gonna plop him down into the overworld. Okay. By the way, you can right click and instantiate scene here, which is probably a lot better than just dragging something like this. So now in my player I already spawn the melee effect. This is the hitbox for the attack. So this is no code here, but we have an area 2D and collision shape. So in our enemy we connect this is a character body, right? Character bodies I think should have signals. No, they do not. Properties, methods, enumerations. Ouch. Let's see. So that's an area. And physics body has that. Area 2D has that. Character bodies do not have this. Kinematic collision. You can use a raycast for close melee attacks, but nope. No. So character body, rigid body inherits this, meaning it can be used by them. Move and collide. Test move. So it's a character body, so let's see what we have here. We have usually move and slide here. Max slides. Get slide collisions. Another thing I don't like about this sort of stuff is that I'm not entirely sure what all the functions are, which is kind of a problem with inheritance structures like this. Okay, so oh. Okay, you know what I'll do? We'll do something simple. Should have this stuff, but I'm not sure. Not found. How do I handle this in the player? The figure spawn attack. I gotta step out for a moment, so I'm gonna insert a break here. But I'm gonna upload probably 2 videos today. This one was longer and there was quite a lot of silence, so I'm just saying goodbye for now. I'll see you next time, which should be very soon. Bye bye.